What's up? What's up? What is up? There's another Friday, another opportunity to get together and record the thing known as the Ball Hog Sports Talk. It's an experience that we get together and record every single Friday. But more specifically, it's where sports, business, and entertainment collide. It's where a few businessmen get together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion, and it is the Ball Hog Sports Talk. Welcome to this week's show. Today's show is going by the title of Paternity Test. Don't start sweating and clamoring and getting nervous just yet, as we do with all of our titles. It's not straightforward. So it's not just the Maury Povich or the Ricky Lake, I got the name from the past, Paternity Test. We're going to get into a little bit more about Paternity Test. So with no further ado, boys and girls, dogs and frogs, cats and rats, pull up a chair, get you a nice tall mug or glass of coffee, mix it with whatever you want. But get ready because the Ball Hog Sports Talk is coming to you. So make sure you're ready, baby. Tell a friend, tell a foe, make sure you tag people, start getting them in the room, let them be a part of the experience because it's about to go down. Let's go. Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke. Because this is the Ball Hog Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw. So come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing, man? It's another Friday. We got the whole crew in the building. We got a paternity test episode about to happen. It's the first day of March. It means we out of Black History Month, but we still feeling Black History proud. We got March Madness coming. It's a very wonderful time to be alive. And thank God I get to be alive and be here this morning with the two of you. For those who do not know, let me make sure I introduce the crew. We have from the Middle Coast, thou who shall be known and intergalactically respected as, celebrated as, and in this particular venue and format, the contributions are coming fast and furious from thou who shall be known as the Big Flow Show. What's up, my brother?
What's good? What's good? Let me just first point out that I'm very happy that this paternity test episode landed in March and not in Black History Month. I just really appreciate that that's what happened, man. So sometimes just the way it works out that way, man, but you never know. But man, happy to start the month with all you guys, man. See where we get going. Spring is in the air. It's coming. It's around the corner. And let's get going.
Even in Chicago, is it feel springish in Chicago? I know y'all Windy City, not to disclose.
Chicago reminded us that it was Chicago a couple of days ago. It was 72, 73 degrees one day and 20 degrees the next day. That's how we in Chicago. Let you know we in control. They always let you know who's boss. Yeah,
y'all believe in the extremes. I know that. Like I hung out in the South Side, and I've gone to what's called the Gold District. They're very different. Y'all believe in extremes.
We do extremism, but we do it. But we still here. That's why we tough.
That's still here. Built for tough. Those Chicagoans, and from the East Coast, the man who loves to wear the Beantown Boston on his sleeve. He celebrates and represents all the good things from the city of Boston. Because I just saw this really funny reel about Boston and being no black people. He is the brother that we celebrate as ETP. Ellis, the producer's in the building. What's up, my brother?
Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're listening and where you're watching. I'm doing great. The sun is shining. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, man.
Good to see y'all.
Good to see you as well, man. It's an interesting time of the year when it comes to sports, business, and entertainment, fellas. We get into this lull as college football ended, and then we get quickly into college basketball. We then see the matinee primetime games for NBA. Same thing with NCAA. And you see the hoopers start to come out. It's a fun time to be a sports enthusiast. Quickly, 30-second answer. Favorite sports scene or vibe on TV right now? What are you watching? I'll start with you on this one, Big Flow Show. Pop quiz. What from the sports world has your interest right now?
Right now I've been watching a lot of Northwestern basketball because, I'm starting to become this NU fan. I started to pick up a little ND basketball. I still try to pick up some Caitlin Clark, moments here and there. I'm in my lull. It takes me a while to transition from football to basketball.
Okay.
So I'm starting to just get ready on the hoop scene, pick it up. LeBron, he trying to make the Lakers a little bit less embarrassing. So I pick one of those games up when the bandwagon calls for an extra passenger. I jump on. But I'm in that little period. With the writer's strike, wifey and I didn't really have an opportunity to watch all our shows.
Okay.
So now they've been bombarding shows now. The writers trying to get that money, for earn that bread. Mm-hmm. So I've been watching a little more TV lately than sports, but it's coming.
Got it. ETP, same question, man. Lightning round, 30-second response when you turn on the TV. Or even if you're listening to sports in the car, on the sports radio, what is piquing your interest when it comes to sports right now? And I'll tell you why this question, and I'm asking the same thing to our audience, those who are watching, answer the same question, but it's presented to you now, ETP. What has your interest when it comes to sports?
I mean, it's, for me, always, whenever there's basketball being played, I'm watching it. The NBA's got a great product, as far as sports go. So I'm sticking with that. I'm trying this year to get back into baseball, as a casual fan. So I'm trying to follow some of the spring training. They're getting ready for the season. So that also makes me feel like winter's over. So I try to get into baseball. So I've been paying attention a little bit to that, and ready to see the Dodgers go 195-0 or whatever it takes to win a World Series.
Yeah, they spent enough money to do it, but fair. Same here in terms of my transition, getting into college basketball, really getting into the NBA thing, and as we are counting down the days, the months, the weeks, the days, and for me even the seconds till we have the Summer Olympics. I'm really anticipating Summer Olympics this year. So the reason I asked that, man, is because I wanted to present the same question to our audience. For those who have already chimed in, we appreciate it. Like we ask you humbly every week, we ask you to like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anyone that you know, and please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. One of our loyal listeners, it's always coming in and contributing, has contributed. Appreciate you, Mr. Scott Bibb. He's talking about the things that he's watching the combine, right? NFL Network, I'll be watching the combine this week, and we're going to talk about the combine. While asking that question, it tees us up for this show. It's going by the name Paternity Test. And while I didn't want to click on the clickbait that I just couldn't resist it, it was about Jerry Jones and the paternity test. Scott Bibb, who was also chimed in about Jerry Jones, happens to be a Cowgirls fan. And so, probably near and dear to his heart. But I followed that path, that dark path, of that rabbit hole to that link because it was about paternity tests. When we hear paternity test, we automatically think it's about the DNA testing that will reveal whether or not you indeed are the father or not. The drama of those shows and waiting on whether or not someone's antics and lies throughout the shows would be undermined based on DNA paternity tests. But the truth of the matter is all three men that you are now seeing on this particular screen, for those who are a part of the live recording, is that the test of being dad, maternity test, goes well beyond just the DNA. For example, all three of us, we have named our children after us. We have namesakes. So from a paternity test standpoint, our commitment, our love for that child, we love them so much that we named them after us, all three of us. In addition, you think about all the commitments. I had a paternity test this morning because I woke up at 5:45 in the morning just to get my son in the gym and train.
That's a test.
That's a test. I had a paternity test this past weekend because I can't even count the number of times I've been up and down I-95 going to these damn AAU basketball tournaments and spending the money on the gas, spending the money on the food, spending the money on the hotels. That's a test.
Please don't quote my man out of context. This could end up on some real bad TMZ. Bobby Brown has paternity tests.
Yeah, paternity test, right?
At 5 in the morning. I'm gonna be
paternity test early.
Come on.
The broader definition.
I get it. That's why everybody. This is a totality
right.
type
just
of comment, right?
Yeah, I gotta keep reminding people that just in case they click in late.
Man.
Like, wait a minute.
What?
What's going on? I'm an elected official. This thing gonna be on the local paper. But in addition, man, right, whether it be I-95, Garden State Parkway, up and down, spending all that money is a paternity test. You're tested whether or not you're committed to this thing. Quickly, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown, anecdote of a time that I was recently tested as well as a game. I'm at a game, the Suns in a championship game. It's like, it looks like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's at a very academically sound school that is not known for sports. And he's on the basketball team where he plays a lot of basketball. So I'm in this gym, championship, playing against a team. They have real players. Not that our players weren't real players because they play well together, but it feels a lot like that episode of The Fresh Prince. So I'm really into it, right? I say certain things. We all have it, right? There's like this way you could communicate with your child that during a game, I'm communicating with my child, I'm supporting my child. He does a great job. But there's a lady in front of me who is a very heavy-set lady, getting more and more bothered. Now, they're playing a team. This particular league is known for these Carlton Banks-type schools. Not a lot of diversity. This white lady's getting more and more frustrated as I'm talking to my child. I then start to say things like, man, you really are self-righteous. Because the lady was looking down upon the way that I'm consuming a game. I yell at refs. I yell at my son. I never yell at anyone else's child, and I never use profanity. Those are just some of the rules. Why? I'm pretty much one of very few black dudes in this gym. So I end up calling her self-righteous. We lose the game, 45-41. My son has a great game, scores like 31 points of the 41, but not enough. And so we're going back and forth, and this lady is like on me. Now, I had to be careful. Why? Because I am very cognizant of the optics behind this. Here's this white lady, gym full of white people. I'm the one black dad for our team, of the one black child. And you got to be very cognizant of the optics. Not to mention this school has a high school. It's actually where Kyrie went to school before he transferred, NCAA, which is a prestigious school here. In that moment, feeling so torn, back to our title, Paternity Test, I had to empathize with all of the dads that were put in that situation. Because the one thing you can never test is a loyalty to your child. How many times you've been in the gym? How many times you've been on the field? How many times you're just supporting your child and someone somewhere has issue with you supporting your child? It's a frustrating environment to be in. She's lucky she caught me as a 46, about to be 47-year-old man with mortgages and a law license. I wanted to call her everything under the sun, and I couldn't. It was just frustrating. Fast forward to this Jerry Jones case. The setup was a lot longer than it needed to be. But this paternity test that Jerry Jones is now, by way of a judge, been forced to take is determining whether or not his alleged daughter, she says that he's the father, is indeed his child. Let's talk about it quickly, because if a judge has to force you to do it, there was an existing or pre-existing agreement that, which has not been debated, has said that they were not supposed to disclose publicly. There were some financial obligations that Jerry Jones had to meet. But this particular young lady, who she says is his child, now an adult, she's 26 years old, wants the truth to come out. Simple question. Multi-billionaire situation. She has one more scheduled payment when she turns 28. Would you forego all of that for the truth to come out and let everybody know that this billionaire owner, who also is reportedly a closet Klansman, is your daddy? I'll start with you on that one, Big Flo Show. And I know that's tough because you and your father are real close. So deal with me. Bear with me on the hypothetical. Is knowing the truth, who your daddy is, more important than that big lump sum payment she was about to get?
So the question is she doing the right thing, or is where am I answering from what point of view?
From you are the child that has always said that from the child's point of view, from her point of view.
I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't tell you how it feels. I had a mom and dad in the home my whole life. My mom and dad, thank God, are still alive to this day. So it's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know their dad, or there's a secret, or all these different things. Those feelings have got to be crazy, you know. And I know firsthand just from conversations I've actually had recently about, finding long lost children from family members that are no longer alive, and listening to the pain that they suffer and they go through. Who knows what that motivates you to do? So I don't know what she really gets out of going public and saying, this is my dad. Nobody really cares about Jerry Jones' behavior unless it's something that's racist or something like that. Nobody really cares that he has outside kids. Nobody cares what's going to go on. I don't know her name. I haven't seen a picture. Haven't been curious. He's not
Davis. I think her last name's Davis. But go ahead.
Now, if she had been was salacious, like she was a black child or something like that, then maybe the people would care. But really,
we got two subplots coming together.
Some subplots, you know what I mean? We asked, made a little spicy and stuff. Did he pay for the sex? That what I'm saying? Like, you got to put something up. But it's just a garden variety infidelity situation that resulted in a child from a rich man. Next. Everybody hit next story. People probably need to get the clickbait. It's not even that big a deal.
Yeah, I fell for it. ETP, same question to you, man. She is going to, by agreement, if they enforce the terms of the contract that was executed between the mother and Jerry Jones, she is going to forego one of them big payments. Same question, ETP. Before we move on, man, I know this is child's play because we got some good stuff to get into, but how dare we not talk about it? Because I don't hear everybody talking about, how about them Cowboys? The same owner that they defended with all this crazy antics is in the news, and for all the wrong reasons. What say you?
What is the question? So I guess I'm trying to follow.
Because she's got to forego a payment in order for her to indeed take this paternity test and then reveal the results of it. And if he is the father, which I think all of us would bet that he is, or else why would he pay millions for over 20
Okay, so it's not confirmed.
Not confirmed.
Settled. She wants to know for sure one way or the other. She went public with it.
But by doing so, she's foregoing a big lump sum payment.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the problem lies in the fact that there's a hint or a speculation, and she was presented with the information that this man was her father, and it just wasn't proven. If she had never known, then she would never have any inkling, right? But the problem is someone, assumingly her mother, told her, he's your father, but we can never speak of this, and that's what it is. And now she wants the truth. So I can respect where she's coming from. I guess to your point, like, why go public? Because really, if he is deemed, I don't know from a legal perspective, if at this point he's officially deemed to be her father, what's the ramifications other than whatever his other life is? He has to admit that he now has a child that, he claimed that he didn't have. So it's anytime we talk about family issues publicly, like, it's hard enough to deal with family issues privately. So
amen to that.
I try not to pile on to this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wish that they could have resolved it. I feel for her, right? Like, if somebody tells you that that's who your father is, but you don't have a full, complete confirmation of that, that's a pretty tough like limbo purgatory.
That happens in the hood every day, B.
Hold on, no.
Walk in the barbershop like, yo, that's your dad right there.
I want to say he's paid
B.
millions of dollars to the family. So at some point, like growing up, he paid like.
He basically was more of a father than other.
Amen.
My thing is like this.
Amen. That's why I don't feel sorry for
If
it.
the mom is like, okay, if this ain't your daddy, where the hell we get all this money from?
Right.
I don't do nothing, and we got all this bread, so something's going on.
But she is the only one of the. Well, I can't say that because it hasn't been proven yet. If proven, she would be the only one of his children that is not holding a front office job for the Dallas Cowboys. So maybe that's
for employment.
She wanted
for employment.
The other family thing we'll get on it quickly is Shohei Ohtani, after making all that money, although it was deferred, and essentially becoming a billionaire himself by way of employment, got married just out the blue, just put on Instagram like it was no big deal. I hope that prenup is ironclad. He only details he would say is she's a normal Japanese woman, and I hope that means that she's in it for all the right reasons.
Right there,
that's what he said. She's a normal Japanese woman.
Don't start putting out what you believe that to be, because I can already tell you going down the wrong path.
Put it out there.
I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Don't let me dig this hole.
Help me help you by shutting up.
What I visualized was she's in it for all the right reasons. It's not the wrong reason. I hope that's what he meant. But
fine human being.
Can there be a right reasons? Can you ignore the fact
love? It better be love, because if I make it,
is there such a thing as falling in love with somebody that's that rich and famous and all this stuff, and it's just pure? Is that
love,
possible?
Man? It's love. It's love. Love shit about you home.
You have to. Hey, if you get that rich, you got to go get somebody from high school. I don't care about how much weight they've gained. I don't care what they do.
Or
if you want love,
that's the penalty of being rich.
If you're that rich,
you can't. Anyone you meet, you got to be. You got to marry another rich person.
No,
you got to go get Beyonce.
If you're that rich and have that much deferred compensation, the other option would be never, ever, ever get married. Like, date the hell out of them forever.
You got to do surrogates. If you give them a shorty, that you might as well. That's 18.
Because we get right back to the Jerry Jones story once she's pregnant, right? So,
and that's just, there's some sadness to that. Like, you want to be able to go get a normal marriage, do whatever, but a woman. I mean, look at all these actresses we have out there getting Oscars and Emmys. They don't have the motivation from, like, I can go from Target, working at Target, to being a bitch if I could just act like I love this dude for a couple years.
Yeah.
It goes, bingo! Give me that second kid. Gotta have that second kid just in case.
So we know it wasn't an accident.
Don't happen to the first one. You don't know. Give me that second one. And that's those. Am I going too far?
Yeah, you're going too far. All right, I'm sorry I took us down that dark
Japanese
path.
women now.
Yeah, it's Japanese.
That's the real Japanese.
Great transition.
Let's go back to defining what a regular.
I was trying to keep the guardrails on this.
Yeah, I was just attacking all women so I could be boycotted.
Got off at the Japanese women.
I want to be canceled by everybody, not just by Japanese.
Just not Japanese women.
Yeah, I'm trying to be canceled.
All right, so
bar on this.
I'm sorry I did it, but I had to, and it inspired why today's episode is entitled Paternity Test. But it didn't stop there. We understand that the test of being a dad, being a father figure, and doing all the things, the commitment goes well beyond just the DNA. In addition to that, right, this week, there were two states, Tennessee and Virginia, that took the NCAA to task. Well, we saw the resolution. The actual lawsuit was filed earlier in the year. There has now been resolution by way of an injunctive relief with a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction for basically the NCAA to back all off these additional regulations when it comes to the N, the I, and the L, the name, image, and likeness. It fits here in this particular episode of Paternity Test because for far too long, if we were on that show, was Amari? The test has shown if it's for the three of us in our era, we're basically peers in the same general range.
Thank you.
The two of us having gone to play at Notre Dame, if there was a paternity test, when it came to us being there, indeed it would have shown that the NCAA was our daddy. You couldn't transfer. You couldn't get paid. You couldn't work in the summers, but for so much, like they were paternalistic forever. Fast forward, you're in 2024. You got this name, image, and likeness. The NCAA, after letting it go off the guardrails, pun intended, how we started to show off the guardrails, is trying to reel it back in and regulate. One of the regulatory steps that they were trying to put into place is that you could not use name, image, and likeness, whether or not it was through a collective or not, or just more broadly and in general. You could not use name, image, and likeness for recruiting purposes, whether recruiting high school students or recruiting from the transfer portal. That stipulation, by way of a federal judge, has been put to the side, and the daddy role, father figure role that the NCAA has played for oh so long is officially under attack. For the athletes, I think we celebrate this. While the NCAA came back and made this statement and talked about how the athletes are how dare they say this, but are in danger of being exploited. It's hard for me to even repeat that jargon because they've been exploited for decades, for generations. They've been exploited in so many different ways, but yet the NCAA, in response to this injunctive relief by a federal judge, is saying this is now threatening that they will be exploited in their NIL contracts and deals. This is now threatening. This all started with Tennessee being under investigation for using NIL in recruiting. It prompted both Tennessee and Virginia to take steps. Both attorneys general took steps to get the NCAA out of private matters when it comes to name, image, and likeness. The days of the NCAA playing daddy might be over. I'll start with you on this one, ETP. You look at this ruling and what it means. On this show, we've talked about the N, the I, and the L ad nauseum. Before the laws changed, we talked about name, image, and likeness. As they changed, we dealt with the legalities. As the deals started to proliferate all around college sports, we talked about the lack of regulation. We talked about how it's going to create different classes, if you will, amongst the Power Five, the haves and the have-nots, based on the boosters and the alum and whether or not they were feeding dollars towards the name, image, and likeness pipeline. And now here we are. A federal judge has gotten the NCAA out of the way. They will not be father figure when it comes to using NIL with recruiting. How does this, in your mind, affect the overall name, image, and likeness ecosystem?
I mean, I think I think it doesn't affect the NIL ecosystem at all. I think really it just continues everything on the path that it's been going. There was obviously the way the schools were configured to be able to kind of leverage the NIL opportunities. They've been doing this, I mean, obviously before NIL, this whole thing has been, operating where pay to play, has been happening in an unauthorized way. But then once NIL came, they created the collectives quickly. They also built up, collectives that were basically paying the kids, pulling from the transfer portal, all of these things. Mm-hmm. So now, I mean, I think it's really just a byproduct of when this all was starting to come into regulation, or legislation was being passed, or all of this was changing where NIL became an option, and the NCAA was basically trying their hardest to maintain control of all the money and all the revenue. And they got fed up, and they basically, for, I guess, pun intended, took their ball and went home and stepped away from the NIL conversation and let everybody else decide. Now they're dealing with the repercussions that they can't unring the bell. They can't come back in and now get involved and try to regulate it, where this whole thing wouldn't have been so Wild West if they had built up and operated as a governing body to really regulate the NIL transactions. But now it's too late. So ultimately, the future of the NIL is fine. It's just going to continue on. The real question is the future of the NCAA, because all of the football conferences, I mean, all the conference reconfiguration and realignment that's happening, they're making the NCAA obsolete on the football side. They may be able to hold on to March Madness for another extra few years because that's a major property. That's where they get the majority of their money. But how long before that starts to erode? And then we start to see the same thing start to happen on the basketball level, and no other sport is providing a level of revenue and income to the NCAA that's going to make it viable moving forward. And then at the last point, it's like, how relevant is the clearinghouse at this point? I don't even know how much traction that really has at this stage. So I just question if we're still creating content and running media in 10 years as a collective, are we talking about the NCAA in a present tense, or are we just talking about what it used to be back in the bad old days?
A history lesson. But to your point, and I'll kick it over to you, Big Flo, because it's very relevant for you. You're a dad that has a child playing Power 5 college football in the Big Ten that has a school that I think has a collective. So it's really relevant for you. But you made a great point, ETP, that I want to just sort of bring back to the topic. It was as though when legislation changed and this was allowed, that indeed, not only they take their ball and went home, but they were an absentee dad. They weren't making rules like, no, you got to brush your teeth. You got to do they never put any provisions around what it should look like. And now they're trying to come in and play dad, right? It's like, all right, you've been an absentee dad forever, but now my son's a McDonald's All-American, and I want everybody to know that I'm the dad. That's what this feels like with the NCAA taking such a rigid stance on using NIL in recruiting. The fact that when I heard that Tennessee was under investigation, we know they signed that quarterback for umpteen $1 million. That was public. And so when I heard that they were under investigation, say again.
Semi-public. It's going to go to my point, but go ahead.
But it seems as though they're taking this opportunity and conveniently trying to put their chest out and let everybody know I'm that baby's pappy. Now that NIL is just such a highly coveted thing, it's a thing that's a part of the fabric of college now. It's commonplace. It went from a theory, this idea, to it is a staple to how decisions are made on college campuses and how athletic directors have to deal with it. The fact that the NCAA is coming in now, Johnny come lately, and wants everybody to know that it still has the power to regulate, feels like an absentee dad trying to come back in a kid's life. I'll go to you with it, Big Flo.
You wasn't with me shooting in the gym? Yeah, I think sure. So I think it's going to have a major impact, and I didn't think so even this morning. At first, I was just like, people been getting paid under the table for years, and the big guys doing whatever, and they're going to different places, and now we're hearing about these big stars that are getting people and do whatever. But, two things. One, being in the football parent circle and hearing stuff, a lot of stories. I know a lot of things because I have a lot of inside sources. I know a lot of confidences I can't break of people who've gotten paid, and I know for a fact that it's the truth. A lot of people that goes out there and it's starting to be, it's like, there's a rumor this guy made that much money, but he really didn't make that much money. And there's all these rumors. I've seen people write stories that these things aren't true. And then I know people who know for a fact who have seen the contracts that they are true. So because I'm saying it's kind of gray area, those things are going to come to become more public. Just like you find out how much all the NFL players and NBA players make, and those contracts are out there public. I think with this ruling, you're going to start getting it to where it's going to be more disclosed, especially when you look at state colleges, right? You have to disclose what the football coach makes at a public in an institution, not as much as a private. But really, the top end is going to always be the top end, right? And you're always going to be like, well, that's that person, right? So there's going to be, the top, call it 50 recruits in the country. They're going to make ridiculous amounts of money, and maybe the top 20 recruits really making the real ridiculous money and trickling down. But what this really is going to impact is going to be the football middle class, right? The Power 5 kid that I'd probably put my son in that category right now, football middle class. Power 5 kid, lots of options, not a signing day, pull your hat off.
I want to help our audience understand. Let's deal with it in terms of like the universal appreciation of recruits, which is stars.
Mm-hmm.
The top 50, they're all 5 stars. So when you say middle class, we're talking a 3-star athlete.
So yeah, my son was a 4-star for whatever hell that means. 3 4-star athletes where you get the guys where, and even in the 4 stars, some of those guys will be considered royalty too. I would consider my son again to be probably upper middle class in as far as being recruited. 15, 16 different offers, all Power 5 schools. He can be chosen, whatever. He wasn't the hat guy. He wasn't going to go the last day and have the coaches all waiting there, on bated breath. We're not those kind of people.
Put one hat on, take the other hat off.
He wasn't one of those kind of guys.
That's upper class. That's 90210. That's Beverly Hills.
That's a different breed. Or what I like to consider the dickheads, right? Like those are the ones that do the stuff like that. There are some kids who have no business doing that do it anyway or whatever. But we're not that kind of.
Is that a defined term, the dickheads?
It's on page 67 of the Webster Dictionary.
Industry jargon, as they call it.
But so my son wasn't going to do all that show stuff, acting goofy. But he wasn't that. Again, good kid, recruited heavily, but not that kind of kid, right? So what happens is when I talk about the football middle classes, people are going to start advertising what they're giving to the football middle class. The stars are going to negotiate their deals off. But now that this NIL can be a part of it, you can say, hey, listen, you come on this campus tour. This is, what do they do now? You go on the campus tour and they show you the football facilities and you're like, damn, such and such school doesn't have a locker room like this. They show you the player lounge. Wow, right. They don't have a player lounge like that. And then they did the weight room, and then they show you the stadium and the game day experience.
Yeah.
Then they show you where you're gonna live.
Yeah. Although NCAA regulated that too. You can't like
they can't football dorm, but the way that they get away with that is we have to let regular students live in the same dorm, but they can still. It has to at least have a certain percentage of students. So some students are coming up because you're the guy that gets the percentage right so that the players can live here. But they'll show you that. They'll show you the gear that they get. And then when you sit down, you do the presentation, they're going to talk about the academics. They're going to talk about the counselors. They're going to talk about the majors, all that kind of stuff like that. And now they're going to start talking about the minimums, the money. Everybody gets this. Starters get that. That's going to be part of the pitch. Now, a while ago, it went from scholarship, and this kind of went slow, and I never got an understanding of this. You had your full scholarship back in the day when you and I were in school. And then I don't know what year it came out where they started calling a full scholarship a total cost of attendance. Total cost of attendance.
Total cost of attendance.
And what they do, they're trying to combat the fact that these kids, and I think that the dirty secret was, there's a lot less. You hear a lot less about shoplifting and all kind of different thefts on the campus because when we were in school, you weren't allowed to have a job. And I'm not expecting anybody to cry tears, but there's a lot of kids on our team that
don't be drop snitching. We just talking in theory.
No, I'm just saying.
Just add allegedly.
You knew people on your team that would get a Pell Grant and send the money home to their parents.
Right, not that part. I'm talking about the criminal activity.
I don't know any of the criminals. All I know is we knew people that had so little at home. Even though they were on full scholarship,
right,
they would get their Pell Grant and send money home from their Pell Grant for their parents to be able to handle. So
absolutely.
Again, I want you crying tears for nobody because at the end of the day, they're going to universities that they're afforded to go to for free. Right. But I'm letting you know that not everybody has a chance to get money, and they can't go we couldn't just go get a job. So you still want to have the college experience. You want to be able to go out with your buddies. You want to be able to hit the movies, maybe an occasional pair of gym shoes, something like that. Maybe take a young lady out. You needed some money, and if you couldn't get it, you ain't got it. You ain't got it. So now they decided, though, that's not right. We need total cost of attendance. We're going to make this free. So they factor in a couple trips home, what a plane ticket would be. So if you're from Florida and you go to Florida State, you'll get less money than a guy from Chicago because you don't have to fly home. And they factor it all in.
Traveling as far, right?
So now we're lucky enough and blessed enough that my son actually gets spending money from the university. Then they have good grade money that they got up to $6,000 if they're still eligible to get a good grade bonus. But these are all dollars that these guys are getting.
And it sounds like I was born too early.
Way too early. And the schools don't overly publicize these things and the cost of attendance. And I was always surprised because some schools give a lot more, right? If you have less sports, you can give more. There's all these factors that nobody was really bragging about. So I was never able to figure out why schools didn't talk about it more. You kind of had to ask. But now with this NIL stuff, and being able to disclose these people that have these huge collectives, that's going to start coming out. And again,
so you think there'll be a specific in the presentation when you go to campus XYZ,
minimum
XYZ
wage.
University is going to talk about explicitly what NIL collective money they have and how they allocate it towards their players.
So if you're coming in and you're not one of those kids that's getting recruited at in a closed door room with this is the big contract, you're gonna say, well, shit, if I come here, I get $60,000 a year. Starters get $100,000. Okay, this is a nice little. I can see myself. I may not be the big guy, but I think I'm gonna start. I'm definitely gonna play. I'm definitely gonna be here. So yeah, I'll come and do this. And that's gonna be where some of these schools die, because the model right now with the collectives is unsustainable. Right? There's no way that you're gonna go day in, day out where you're gonna get these donors, a collection of donors to write it. They're gonna have to go to some sort of a corporate sponsorship.
You think it's unsustainable? I don't know, man.
I think it's going to be difficult. I think it has to go to corporate. There's going to have to be some sort of corporate money that's going to come in and pay these salaries and do some different things off of that. Because unless the schools start paying the collectives out of their money that's coming in from the TV contracts, so the Big Ten going from $55 million to 90, $100 million, call it, overnight, and they're going to get an extra $45 million with no additional expenses. If that's not where the money's coming from, and you're going to have to keep going to donors every year and say, man, I'm going to need another $10 million from you. We got to pay so-and-so. Oh, I need another $10 million. We got to do this. Right. I don't know how sustainable that's going to be.
Don't act like the money hasn't been being spent forever. Like,
yeah, I'm saying, Flo,
that money's been there the whole time. And
the payroll was top end. Yeah, the Reggie Bushes of the world got a house and a car, and that held him for a while. They got some money. But the regular guy that came in there of the 86.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, maybe it wasn't all given to the athletes, but the money was there.
That's
how
what
it was
happened.
Being spent was different.
To your point, ETP, I agree that money is already in let's just hypothetical multi-millionaire alum or booster, hypothetical person on an annual basis was already writing a check. The difference is, instead of the check going to the endowment and to the investment office of the university, which came with perks like your preferred seating, access to locker room, things that were just like, all right, because you've given us this, you get that. That same person is going to write the checks, but the money's going to either go directly to the collective or directly to the athlete. And I would just argue that the overall volume of money transacting based on people's love affair for said university or said athletic program, right? I think that's going to remain the same. It's just how it's being allocated. That's the only thing that I think is going to be different.
Okay, so I would say this: except for the Power 2, a lot of these schools, that money that they're raising,
them the Power 2 now. It's college football.
From a money standpoint, it's the SEC and the Big Ten, and then everybody is way less.
Gotcha.
And trying to compete with facilities, or trying to compete with coaching payments, trying to compete with whatever. They're relying on that money that comes in that they've been going out for. That's been earmarked. It wasn't like they were just saving the money for a rainy day. They're making investments, they're doing different things, and they're making their annuities and their endowment funds grow and all different things of that nature. So now that money, they're going to have to shift it and do whatever. And so for some schools, it's not sustainable because they're not getting enough money from the conference, from the football conference, to really get anybody.
Fair.
So
Fair.
I think those Power 2s are already been lopsided, but I think it's going to be further lopsided.
Don't they become Section 8? So what I do
Section
think
8. Section 8 program.
They're going to be Section 8 programs. I agree with you there. Now, some of those programs that are going to get lost in the sauce, they're not a part of the Power 2. They haven't historically been the pipeline to attract talent that they could then build over time. Occasionally, let's call it once a decade, they have a team. Those programs are dead in the water. They're dead in the water, right? Because there's no way for you to compete, right? From, unless there's like some incentives, right? Not to overly make the analogy with development, but like you had to create tax incentives, tax abatements for certain development to happen. You had to create this thing called an opportunity zone to attract dollars for certain development to happen. I would argue the same thing is going to be true within college sports. You got to create some incentive for development to happen in programs that don't enjoy being a part of the power two, that don't enjoy having this perpetual income stream from donors, that don't enjoy having multi-million-dollar media deals. Other than that, you can't compete.
But how does that change the landscape anyway, right? Because like all these resource distribution deficiency or imbalance has always been the case. Like
it has.
What's the difference? Like the the MEAC and whoever, they don't have the media deals, they don't have the endowment, they don't have the boosters. Like all of this inequity or inequality has always existed. It's just the top is getting a lot more money. But like they only have so many roster spots, so the kids got to go somewhere and play some sport.
The problem is the difference now. It used to be optics, right? So the locker room at LSU was fantastic. It had the couches, and they have all these cool things. But honestly, we all know that it only goes so far, right? Okay, if I got to give up these beautiful facilities, because you know what, when I'm in that facility at locker room B, I don't know if you were thinking about a couch. You were so damn tired and so beat up, blood. You want to go get to your bed and get to your room and do whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, those things are cool, but nothing speaks like cash in the pocket.
For sure.
So now you get
hard cash. It just changes the recruiting like the competitive conferences and teams and all of that, but it doesn't like create greater deficiencies for these, lesser endowed or resource conferences.
You have to, when you couple that with the transfer portal, it does. So, every once in a while, you had a Steve McNair that went to Alcorn State that was a monster. How the hell did we get over here? You had Marshall Falk that somehow ended up at San Diego State.
Yeah, Randy Moss at Marshall. You go down the list of guys.
You go down. Now those guys, 1 year there, hey man, there's been one
out.
But that's a trend. I don't know. Like maybe it's a Venn diagram, but that's a transfer portal issue.
Because when you couple that with the money's there,
without the money, take the money away, you have that issue. Like take the legal money away, and you still have that issue because Nick Saban rolls into whatever Central Arkansas State and be like, we'd like for you to play for us. Absolutely. I don't care if you're not writing me a check right now. The pipeline to the NFL or to play professional football just opened up much greater for me.
Facts.
I'm out.
Go ahead. Your example there, though, ETP, is for the upper echelon, right? That person at Central Arkansas State, because of their productivity, officially became a part of the upper class, right? They're the most highly coveted player at that position in the transfer portal. I think what the Big Flow Show is saying is that's going to be what it's going to be. It's a market of its own. And it is always going to have vibrant tentacles to get players to where they need to go. There's a whole middle class of players, whether it be high school recruits, whether it be the average person in the transfer portal, that this injunctive relief provided to the state of Virginia and to the state of Tennessee and allowing NIL to be a part of the recruiting has now made a whole new world for that group. And I think that's what you're saying on that Big Flow Show. I'll let you get last word on it before we move on. But I think this is like a pivotal fork in the road moment for just how much longer the big bad NCAA, which has played daddy to athletes for generations, including you and I, Big Flow, like NCAA was our pappy. Because once you went to Notre Dame, in order to transfer, there were so many different stipulations that they basically had you. And the coaches knew it. They could say anything to you. They could bully you. They could mistreat you because they knew in order for you to leave, right, before the transfer portal, there was some onerous things that you had to go up a hill 3 times in order to be able to leave, and it was going to set you back. That's not the case anymore. That has moved out of the way. And I think with this particular ruling and injunctive relief, the NCAA, and to your point, ETP, the days are numbered. And if it still exists 20 years from now, when we absolutely will still be in media doing our thing, the Ball Hall Sports Talk will be a household name by then. If it still exists, it will not exist in the paternal role anymore. think that's where I'm seeing this ruling at. I'll give you 2 last words on it, man. Let's go 30 seconds version of it. You see this ruling, you hear it, you know its impact on NIL and recruiting. I'll start with you on the Big Flow Show. Last word, and then I'll kick it to ETP before we move on.
I say, as big as this ruling is, we're still in the infancy of change. I still think that there's going to come a day where the athletes are going to be deemed employees, and there's going to be a big, huge overhaul, and the universities are going to be paying it. I think that the universities and the NCAA are trying to stall that day as far as possible, because now that really digs deep into their bottom line. And right now we're still at the point where they're fending for themselves, and it hasn't impacted the schools from a financial standpoint. So I think we're still in the infancy of change. I'd say the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see something where we're like, man, do you remember? And we're going to talk about how football was in our day, and people are going to be like, what? Because the normalcy that we're going to see is going to be crazy. So
ETP, last and final word, put an exclamation point on the topic. I'll give it to you before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll totally agree. That's exactly where I was coming from. Until the schools are directly compensating all student athletes on scholarship beyond the price of education and room and board, we're not even at the beginning of the conversation. So
fair. And when that happens, because I don't even want to say if anymore, when that happens, the NCAA is going to take an either bigger, more distant step backwards as it pertains to them playing the daddy role when it comes to college sports. Let's go on to the NFL Combine, because before you become a professional in football, they've got this NFL Combine thing. So let's get into some of the nitty-gritty. The linebackers and defensive linemen performed yesterday, and there were some eye-popping times. You had the Penn State defensive lineman, you had the Alabama defensive lineman, who I think went to the illustrious St. Thomas Aquinas of the greater Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. But let's get into more broadly. For years, we've seen this disconnect, no correlation whatsoever, with the times that people are putting down on paper and whether or not it translates into success at the NFL level. There's what you write down, the times that you have on paper, and then there's game speed. Where are we in this, right? Because the more I say that it's just sort of an exercise, the medical tests are becoming more important, and the interviews are becoming more important than the on-the-field drills. The more I tell myself that, the more I got to admit that the NFL has created sort of an off-season season with this combine. We'll all be tuned in watching the NFL Network. The viewership is going off the charts. So maybe I'm wrong. Where do you guys sit when it comes to the times that we write on paper versus game speed, and whether or not this whole exercise of NFL Combine, like in 20 years from now, will it still exist? I'll start with you on this one, Big Flow Show.
Sometimes I look at this like I do academics to make a comparison. You get somebody who has bad grades and a great ACT score, and you're like, oh, this kid's smart. We're going to let him into the school. So, well, he had that ACT potential, intelligence, while he was getting those C's, right? And so I look at it and say, I'd rather see this kid with good grades. And even if he has a poor ACT score, barring the fact that, maybe he got some school and cooked the books or whatever, but like this dude makes it happen with little intelligence, right? So I see a lot of examples of, the receiver, defensive end Suggs, that's, probably going to be a Hall of Famer one day, or maybe not, but an unbelievably good player for the Baltimore Ravens. He had 15 or 16 sacks when he was in college at Arizona State, but then he ran like a 4.8, and then he fell in the draft. And then he went to the NFL and did everything you would expect him to do when he was going to do that. So I hate that.
He dominated.
What's his name? Just win, baby, win. What's his name? Al Davis. Al Davis was famous for drafting people who ran fast 40s at the combine. Well, that guy ran a 4.2 in college when he only had 400 yards receiving. Right. So I don't care how fast the man ran, or he got a guy that the Bears picked that could jump out of a pool, which I'm still very impressed about. But his vert was so good, jumped out of a pool. He jumped out of a pool when he only had 4 sacks in college, and he can still jump out that pool. So I don't like it. I think sometimes you get some guys that, diamonds in the rough that you see, or maybe they were misused in college. You got to look at the situation, but those are anomalies when you come to me. The personal workout, watching the guys throw again. In underwear and no DBs and no blitz and do whatever. Yeah, the guy throws a great football. Fantastic. Just like basketball, NBA basketball. You put these guys in the shoot around, everybody's draining it, but nobody's playing D.
Right.
Like no one's closing out.
Right.
He ain't getting fouled. So the combine is fun. I love watching it. It's pretty cool to see people put up these amazing numbers and watch these freak athletes do things that we haven't seen people do before. But far, far too much stock is put into it. I think, the best receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, I think he said he was clocked at 4.7 when he ran 40. It doesn't matter. I mean, like some guys can just play the game and they're good for old. We played with a guy named Alton Maiden. He was undersized. He had T-Rex arms, but he could just play somehow. I don't know how. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. Thomas Knight's another guy that I played with. I don't think you played with him.
But I know T-Knight.
He bench pressed like 135 pounds. Right? Play defensive end. I would see him bull rush guys that got drafted in the first round and body slam them. I don't know why, but physics don't always add up. So you could take him to combine, he's going to look like trash. Well, put him in front of an offensive tackle, he'll kill you.
Yeah. So we got this love affair with the combine.
And Scott Bibb ran a 4.4, and he's trash at sports. Look at him. He ran a 4.4.
And if you believe he ran a 4.4, I got a bridge to sell you. It's right over there in Brooklyn.
I buy that bridge. It'd be a toll booth on him.
But we've got a love affair when it comes to this combine thing, right? And we all want to spat out someone's 40 time or how many times they put up 225 and disconnect. There's a dissonance between the performance and what we see on film. While NFL executives might not like the decision, I respect it. Marvin Harrison Jr. basically told them what I'm suggesting here is that instead of me training for 2 months to go run a 40 in my draws in front of y'all, I'm about to go work to be a better rookie receiver. My training is going to lead me to have a great rookie year. And I put this to you, ETP. Your player personnel over the Patriots. I'll give you your team at least. No, I'm gonna give you a different team because then I want it to be a business decision. The Dolphins.
As long as it's not the Browns.
Also ain't the Browns. See, you're not. You're the executive and you're making a decision. You're in the war room and you're thinking about who you're gonna draft. You need a receiver, and here's this guy who essentially put up all the numbers in college, beat all the defensive backs other than the Michigan game, did everything he needed to do. Odds-on favorite to be the first wide receiver taken off the board. But he is now questioning the system, the very system that we have used for years. Do you allow that to be a black eye and a sort of a mark of detraction on this particular player? Or do you say, like, yo, there's some there. Instead of me worrying about running in some draws, I'm about to go try to become a better receiver. What do you say as an executive? So,
I mean, look, I'm not gonna sit here and say that every industry. I have a couple things to say about the combine in context of like real life. So everybody has interviewed for some type of job. There's the interview process for any job. Maybe there are some jobs where this doesn't apply, but it's a simulation to collect data on who you are as a worker to perform the job at hand, right? Fair. And like you have an MBA, you understand what like interviewing with a consulting company like a McKinsey, and they ask you how many taxis are there on the island of Manhattan. What the fuck does that have to do with how well you are going to do any job? Right? But it's like, okay, well, let me see how they think, right? So I don't I don't say that to say that any of the tests that happen at the combine, there's value in them. And I think it's about being able to like measure against, okay, well, we saw you on film. Let's get an up close and personal like analysis or evaluation of your physical attributes as well as your mental attributes, right? There's also logic, there's logic testing and interviews and all of this stuff that comes into play when you're being evaluated for a multi-million-dollar job for a multi-billion-dollar, collective of organizations. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that the issue comes with what amount of weight gets put on it, because just because you know how many taxis there are on the island of Manhattan does not mean that you're going to be able to be a great consultant to be able to solve major business problems, right?
So what's your weighted average? So as the executive, your weighted average, because now you've got to put weight on the fact that he's got a 0. One of his scores versus the other wide receiver that you're considering is a 0.
I don't think that I like I said, I'm answering it more broadly. Like, I don't think that there's a cookie cutter way to analyze it. And that's the problem, to say, oh, well, the 40 time is a deal breaker. Like, it's not. It's a data point in the whole algorithm or the portfolio of this person's profile, right? So it's like, okay, well, their catching radius is this. Their hands are glue. They can, got breakaway speed. They can block, but they run a 4.8 40 on turf in their underwear. Like, there's all this stuff that you put it. The executive success is not in, did I look at the numbers and say, okay, well, this number is smaller than that, so I'm not going to go with them. It's, how do I evaluate and fit them into how they're going to work within my organization and maximize their potential. So it's not one key piece of it. The problem is that we just put so much emphasis on it, but ultimately, like, I don't think that it would make sense to just go off game film, because a lot of people don't even have that much game film.
Well, when I look back and look, as a Browns fan, we got to experience just how asinine some of the pre-draft assessment is, because we got bit by an animal called C.J. Stroud,
right?
Who everybody questioned.
Right.
Said he wasn't smart enough. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. So he couldn't be the first quarterback off the board. And the dude balled this year. He balled out. And I think that as an executive,
intelligence on the field was one of his biggest attributes, even though his Wonderlic score was
ridiculous. He basically failed the Wonderlic, right? from a quarterback standpoint.
But like, that's an example. You could be dyslexic, and it doesn't mean that you're not intelligent, right? But you just can't read something at a certain speed and comprehension. But you get on the field and you're picking it apart. As an example, not saying he's dyslexic, but I'm just saying that.
Right. No, I got you. I got your analogy. I got where you're going with that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I think for executives, and that's why I said for you as an executive, the challenge is because while we all know that that's true, that it's a puzzle full of several pieces, and you got to put weight on each one of the pieces of the puzzle. And if one of the pieces is missing, you got to decide internally based on all the other pieces whether or not you can get over that. So for this example, the piece that's missing is Marvin Harrison Jr. will not have NFL combine numbers to compare to the other receivers that are considered top 5 receivers, right? And so as an executive, the challenge is that now we've got this revision history approach as fans to question you as an executive, right? Well, the information was there. You should have known. And that's where I think executives get in trouble, is that they want to use the information because they feel like that's enough evidence, that's enough validation, that they always have cover your ass material that protects their job.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is what happens on the field is what happens on the field. And sometimes it's inexplicable how a guy who runs a 4.8 is running everybody down. And some people are just as fast as they need to be on the field. And when I say on the field, not in underwear in front of the NFL executives, but on the field when the lights are on and there's a win and loss on every play, somehow, some way, they figure that shit out. And so that's why I'm becoming a little less intrigued. Now, I'm going to watch the combine with my sons, because going through the exercises as a youth football coach, I want to watch it to look at some of the drills, and I use it to inspire players, and all of that good stuff is true. But it's interesting to see just how important as a in this episode of Paternity Test, as a driving force, how much weight do we put into these numbers? And
so the one of the other things that I didn't say, but even in addition to that, so what I will say is kill whatever tests will not make you a better player if you train for them. If training to run a faster 40 will absolutely make you a better player, regardless of what you score on it, but adding that training is going to improve who you are on the field, keep it. If the bench press is going to help, keep it. If the triple jump or the shuttle run, keep it. Keep all of it. Because that's what you're doing when you're preparing for the combine, you're training for that, right? So if those tests, if the results of those, not the results of those tests, but the preparation for those tests helps make you a better player, by all means, keep it in there. The other thing that I would say, and I don't know, like this gets a little bit risky, but I don't know that we're there yet, but from a medical technology perspective, it would be interesting to start testing like head strength and strength in terms of resilience to impact and things like that.
Neck strength and stuff like that.
Yeah, just in terms of where you land at risk for CTE or concussions or things like that. And then if there are exercises that you can do to prepare for those tests to improve so that when you walk into the league, you're more resilient to that, then everybody wins.
Yeah, that's going to be called the Tua test. As we transition, I'll say this, because to your point, you're saying that keep the drills that ultimately, by a result of you preparing for the drill, you have no choice but to be better as a football player ultimately as you enter the NFL. Making that statement as an executive, I would say, hats off to Marvin Harrison, because he basically said, I'm going to skip this step and get to ultimately why you are putting me on a turf running in my draws that I got to prepare for 2 months. I'm just going to focus on the football part, right? Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., with the name that he has, the platform that he has, he can get away with it. So I'm not saying that that's going to be commonplace, because most players don't have that same leverage and luxury. But very interesting, man. Worth talking about, because it is the Paternity Test episode, and Father Time has been in control of all of us for oh so long. Father Time finally met his match. He is the win-loss record is affinity to 1 now, because Tom Brady, that's right, your man that you call the GOAT. I don't know if he's the GOAT yet. Still decided.
Yeah. What else does he need to do?
You got to sit back and wait on Patrick Mahomes before I'm willing to deem him the GOAT. But Patrick, I almost said Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady at 46 years old ran a faster 40 at 46 than he ran at 22. He ran a 5.18 at 46.
Wind aided.
Whereas he ran a 5.28 at 22. And look, I've been talking about it. It's finally gonna happen. I'm gonna dunk, but that's aside from that point. Father Time is officially counting his first loss. Tom Brady. Yeah, I want to give credit to the divorce. Sometimes you got to get rid of some baggage before you can run fast. Sometimes that's a joke for anybody coming at me. That's a joke.
Hell no. It's gonna be on your two said. He once said. He once said.
Let's unpack this.
Especially if she was an Asian woman. That was a joke. Right? But something is to be said about this fountain of youth that Tom Brady has found. If anybody can find a fountain of youth, it is Tom Brady. He married one of the most beautiful people on the planet. He's lived one of the most amazing lives. Allegedly. He's won so many, allegedly. He has won some of the most amazing games. The comebacks, things have gone in his favor, from a kick just slightly being outside the uprights to somehow, some way, a coach forgetting how to do math. Tom Brady continues to be the life form of winning a lottery ticket, man. The brother just don't stop. Shout out to Tom Brady, man. To run faster at 46 than you did at 22, pretty impressive, man.
He's on that shit.
Yep. That's the
He been on
barbershop
that
answer.
shit. He been on that
Boy,
shit.
on that shit. You
Oh,
know,
nobody run fast at 46.
No random testing these days.
Yeah, you're gonna start seeing it with Mitchell. What's the dude from the Olympics that kept getting faster after he got caught?
Ben Johnson. Ben
Yeah,
Johnson got
me too.
caught. And then
There's a
you
couple
had
of
some
dudes.
people got caught in traps.
How did dude get caught? Oh, you faster now?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at Barry Bonds' house.
Yeah.
Like Barry Bonds not cool. You know, you guys are hanging
Yeah,
out.
Justin Gatlin, I think that's what
Justin Gatlin, yeah, he got
Gatlin
caught and came back and was still fake. Just got better shit.
Yeah, got that
Better
good
shit.
Let's hop into some other stuff, man, because while we do talk about Tom Brady being the GOAT and him playing the position of quarterback, it brings me to another issue that we saw in the quarterback room, if you will, from a legacy standpoint, and it's Cam Newton. Cam Newton has been very supportive over the last, call it 10 years. I might be rounding up or rounding down. A good estimation of 7-on-7. Has created his own league. CN1 has his own tournaments, has his own team, flies the best kids in from around the country, is very notorious for talking a lot of trash during these 7-on-7 tournaments, has created even more of a contentious situation because he is very public and saying, if you beat one of my teams, I pay you $5,000 on the spot. So there's already a lot of back and forth, a lot of, bopping of the gums and talking trash and 7-on-7. You add $5,000 incentive to it, and you can imagine the stakes are even higher, and the environment and atmosphere is even hotter. This week we saw two men try to take on Cam Newton, a very hostile situation. We've discussed it ad nauseum because we're towards the end of the week, being Friday. But I just wanted us to bring it up, man, in this situation, right? Because the narrative that has been put out there is interesting. But to see, a man 6'6", every bit of 250 pounds, prove to those oncomers that he indeed is their daddy. Want to discuss it into this paternity test episode. I'll start with you on this one, ETP. We see it, and obviously, man, it's not a great moment, right? Like, we should be talking about Cam Newton's Super Bowl appearance and analyzing that, not a video of him fighting two men and at a 7-on-7 tournament.
3-4 men, two.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of men. I think the last guy that came in, they say, was trying to help Cam Newton. I don't know. I wasn't there.
He swung on Cam.
But there's a bunch of teenagers watching. And so, yes, Cam Newton proved it indeed. In terms of the dude trying to jump him, he is indeed they daddy. Because he would not even go down. The hat didn't even get knocked off. Seeing it, man, as responsible adults, as businessmen, as people that respect guys that give back to their community and create platforms for them to get exposure, 7-on-7 has now generated real, Power 5 scholarship opportunities. That does not reconcile well with what we saw in video. I'll start with you on the ETP. I know we all saw it. What'd you think about it? And then we can move on. I don't want to. Shannon Sharp went full social comparison between the Eli and Peyton Manning camp versus this situation. I don't want to go there. But I do want to, I think it's incumbent upon us to be responsible enough to discuss it. I throw the question to you. You see it and you think what?
So I guess for context, I remember seeing footage of Cam at his league or, at this, year, over the past couple of years, and him, players kind of jarring back and forth and them talking trash to each other. And Cam just kind of not taking the position of Cam being as involved or as part of it, where there wasn't really a big difference in terms of kind of his status and everybody else. So I don't know. Those are just videos that I saw where, kids were just talking trash to him and they're going back and forth.
Yep.
So
the one video, the dude talking about, man, you ain't got no
yeah,
job.
you're not, you're not right. And I got more money, whatever, just general shit talking for what it's worth. So that dynamic, if that's part of the dynamic, then I guess that could create some challenges within, just the whole culture of the situation. It's always unfortunate when adults get into physical altercations in spaces where there's children involved and setting examples and all of that. So there's not much that needs to be said, or I'm not going to see anything new about that. Like it's definitely unfortunate. The other side of it is like it's also in an environment that is very competitive and violent in some ways, and so it's a different. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but like if you were at like bring your child to work day, or bring your parents to school day, and it was everybody's in suits and there's a fight there, yeah, that's a different type of environment that's going to be a lot more shocking. Not saying there's anything right about it. I'm just saying the culture of this environment is a little bit different, where I think it's getting overblown. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. Nobody's pressing charges. Really, the biggest issue is that it's a media topic. And I think and at the end of the day, with the kids there, it's also a teachable moment. Like this, I've been in places where adults get into bad altercations and things like that, and there's an opportunity to address it with children in a way that's actually going to be valuable to them in terms of how to conflict resolve or whatever it is. Right?
Fair.
There's just
very fair.
There are ways to address this where everybody's up in arms about what happened,
Right.
but at the same time, it's like when if you're missing an egg in your car and the eggs, and then you call customer service, not that this doesn't make sense, but like when you call, you're an angry customer because your service wasn't great, and then they help you out, and now they turn a bad situation into a good one, and it ends up being beneficial. Like that's the piece that gets taken out of the narrative of, oh, black people, adults fighting in front of kids, and black people always fighting and blah, blah, blah. Fine. Whatever the case. But what was done to address it afterwards? We're not going to get an update on that. So I don't look at it as totally negative. It's just the negativity is around where the media gravitates towards.
Fair, very fair. I will say, someone at because all great conversations about sports happen in the barbershop. My man was just like, yo, man, it could have gone a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. At least they kept it to fists and wrestling. Right. And no gun was brandished.
Right.
There's no firearm. I'll let you get last word on it. I know that your son is a receiver, and you've seen the 7-on-7 environment, and it is there's a lot of toxic masculinity in the 7-on-7 environment. Where you catch someone with some head tap, the whole group gets around them, and there's a lot of that goes on. But to see Cam Newton and understand the environment, I figure we at least talk about it briefly. So I'll give you last word on the Big Flow Show before we move on. You see it and you think.
So I think, two sides of it. One, fucked around and found out, right? Some people think that you soft because you're not in the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
Fucked around
6'5", 250 when you're watching it from the couch is a lot different.
There may be an NFL team out there thinking whose quarterback was a statue getting hurt, thinking, damn, this man, he still could have thrown the ball 50 yards downfield on the point. And with the way he was making a sandwich and dragging dudes down by whatever.
Headlocking one while disciplining the other. He was definitely their daddy.
He was somebody's daddy. But the other part is this is the state of 7-on-7. It's disgusting. I can't stand it. I didn't let my son play 7-on-7 because of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think it's terrible. We went to a couple tournaments. This happens all the time at tournaments, fights all the time. And the people who run the 7-on-7 programs love it. They love the fighting. They encourage it. So you have these adults that are leading kids that shouldn't be in front of nobody's kids to do whatever. It's disgusting. It's terrible. I raised my son to be a good sportsman-like guy. I wish he had a little more swagger when he come down to do whatever. But I always told my teammates, celebrate every good play with each other. I never look at the opponents, and you're going to get the same message across. The disrespect that they do to each other. And then when I see these same kids, and we could do a whole expose show on this, and I had to change names to keep them innocent. When they get to college, they have no chin because all the crap talking and all the horribleness that they did when they were bullies and, the way that things are played. And then they get to school and you got to play real with pads, and you deal with people that, how come I can't just jump up and catch the ball with one hand over the guy and clown him like it worked before? And now these kids is cowering in the corner and faking hurt and all kind of stuff. There's a lot of, I think it's terrible. I mean, I think 7-on-7, the concept is good. I think you should play with your high school for the most part. I think you should be playing with your high school, running your plays, and go and do whatever. But making these all-star teams, you get a guy who ends up who's a wide receiver playing linebacker on the 7-on-7 team just to get on the team. it's dumb spending all this money. You're going to wherever, and I don't see the product changing. Now the game is getting more towards passing. There's a lot of good running backs. Kyron Williams is a great example. I think
That
it's
are
Kyron
using the
Williams.
passing game. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Kyron
he's
Williams,
using the passing game now when he was a pure running back in high school, but there's no room for running back in 7-on-7. So he played receiver for one of the local teams around here, and it helped him become a better football player. He made it out there and did right. But all that trash talking and all that whatever, people say, had to have a dog mentality and all that. It's trash. To me, it's trash. And I just think that what's happened with the thing, it's no big deal what happened with Cam Newton. That is so average. That happens every weekend somewhere. Is a 7-on-7 tournament. Something like that's happening. That's no big deal.
You made the decision. I didn't realize you did. But when it comes to the paternity test for me and making that decision, I did the same thing. I'm not spending no money on us playing football and underwear. And, my oldest son is quarterback. My youngest son, I might let him. He played once or twice last year. Ultimately, I might let him play because he's more of a receiver. But I just think that the fundamentals are out of the window for most quarterbacks in 7-on-7. So that's why I didn't do it.
And
but
DBs.
and DBs. But the other thing was the money. Like, wait a minute, we got a lot of expenses in the fall when we travel. As a head coach of a very competitive youth football team, trying to take that bravado and trying to take that unsportsmanlike conduct that is encouraged and celebrated in 7-on-7 and get rid of it in the fall has become its own challenge. A guy will catch a ball and he'll do this, or catch some over. They all do this. Like, don't get me no penalty, man. Like, that's just not how real football works. And so I think there's something to be said about the environment and how it's being cancerous. So I take your point well. Let's get from Cam Newton and 6'5", 250, a work of art. Looked like the man was drawn to another work of art. Looked like he was drawn in LeBron, another man who's defying father time. Not only did he have a chase down block last night, but he also 2 nights prior led his team with the largest fourth quarter comeback from a point differential standpoint in his career in year 21. The Lakers versus the Clippers, they came back. They were down 19 in the fourth. He scored 19 points in the fourth. The Clippers only scored 16. And then the following night, you see what he does. Now, yes, it was against the Wizards, but LeBron's still cooking, man. In year 21, Father Time is in trouble. They might have 2 losses. Not only Tom Brady, but another GOAT, at least the greatest of all time when it comes to not being Michael Jordan, and LeBron James is also showing that he's still fighting back to Father Time, man. In year 21, pretty impressive. I'll give you first word and last word on it. The Big Flow Show. Chime in if you want, ETP. I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge LeBron's still cooking before I get to the next topic. Shout out to LeBron, man. See how I do you? I'm teeing you up to talk about your mans in there.
Throw it off the glass.
Off the glass, baby. Off the
glass.
I
mean, again, it doesn't. Every conversation about LeBron doesn't always have to include Michael Jordan or whatever. So I think just keeping it on his accomplishments. Someone was breaking down the stats of what people would have to do to match his career scoring points and how much they'd have to average and how much longer they'd have to play. And I think when it all goes down, whatever you want to say about him, it's just going to be amazing at how long this man played at a competitive level where the expectation that you have of LeBron today is the same expectations you had of LeBron 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
When it comes to, LeBron, he didn't do that. LeBron is 156 years old, and he still plays D. Like, he got dunked on the other day, and they put it on there. Who at that age is trying to stop a dunk? Like, right. You know what I mean? He's still out there trying to block dunks. He got dunked on. God, thank you. He's playing defense, in a defenseless league. So I think it's just amazing. I don't think we're ever going to see it again. A guy with that kind of longevity, still playing healthy. I love it. Lakers in 6.
Lakers in 6. I knew it was coming. But I wanted to give him that moment, man, and then get to this moment because I don't know if you had anything to add about ETP before I get to Bronny.
Just from a statistical standpoint, LeBron right now is averaging more points per game than every single player besides himself that has played in year 21 combined,
which says a lot. Now they
which
still
is like
are
6 players.
they still are. In the last 10 games, they're 7-3. In the last 10 games, the Warriors are 8-2. They're still in a two-way battle for the 9th and 10th spot, so probably be in a play-in. And Golden State has looked really good over the last 10 games based on who they played against. So while we have rightly so acknowledged what he's doing in year 21, there's always going to be the detractors. So he's always going to be fighting against the detractors. You got to give a man credit.
40 points from 40,000 points. 40 more points, he will have 40,000 career points.
Which is crazy. But he also was very public this week in saying that he wants to back.
It's not even real anymore.
It's not. I mean, they are video game numbers. But what is real is his fatherly moment. In this episode of the Ball Hawk Sports Talk that's going by the name Paternity Test, we saw a paternity test in the sense that they tested his fatherhood by questioning his son. There's a big thing out this week comparing Bronny James' freshman year numbers to what then became an all-star Jimmy Butler. But it wasn't doing so purely for the comparison. It was because there's been a lot of conversation triggered about, can Bronny indeed play in the NBA? This week, it was the first time ESPN took Bronny James off their mock draft. The conversation is now starting to pick up whether or not, indeed, this narrative that Bronny James, who was at one point questioned whether or not he should have been a McDonald's All-American, whether or not he can play in the NBA. Now, we can argue that all we want. What cannot be debated is that LeBron James came out this week on behalf of his son and said, just let the kid play. Thought it was a really fatherly moment. Now, he's the one, LeBron James, who has been telling us that Bronny can play the NBA. So it might have been a little bit disingenuous in the sense on the substance of it, but on the form of it, it was good to see him be a father. I'll start with you on this one, ETP. Does he have a valid point? Is that we all need to back off and let this 18, 19-year-old kid be a freshman off of what was real health scare coming back? Or is Bronny fair game because LeBron James made him fair game?
So it's like there's a fair point and it's fair game. Like I have a split opinion about it, but so it's a fair point because he's a freshman in college. We shouldn't be talking about anything beyond him as a freshman in college as anybody else. Obviously, he has the burden of being the offspring of one of two of the greatest indefensively players that ever played the game.
Right.
But he also presented it as, I mean, he was talking about his future as an NBA player in relation to his son.
Connected too, right.
And this was before his son even went to college. Like while his son was planning on what he was going to do for at least his first or only year of college basketball. So a lot of this was brought on by LeBron leveraging his media prowess and his ability to promote his son and put his son in a position to, get the best opportunities. And now it's kind of gone a little bit by the wayside. What I will say is there's the pre-situation and the post situation, and the changing point is the health. I mean, him having a heart attack, like his life being in jeopardy.
Yeah.
At that point, we don't talk. If I'm the father, I'm not talking about anything about what NBA team is going to draft him. If I'm talking about him at all, which I'm probably not. Again, I don't like the idea of personal matters being public information. If I'm having a conversation, I'm really just focused on making sure that my son is as healthy as possible to live a long and prosperous life and get back to the point where he's confident in his abilities to do whatever he wants. And that's the end. That's the end of the soundbite. I'm not talking about anything. I'll show up to the game. I'll root for him. I have no comment about it. I'm not talking about my son. He's doing his thing, and that's what's going to happen. So
Fair.
Him coming in and like trying to reverse engineer or undo that, all he could have actually just played the card and been like, listen, we've always had high hopes for our kids, as any parents would. We've hit some adversity. We don't know the effect of that, what the effect of that will be truly. What I would say is the same way you respected us when it happened, respect that we're still working through this because it wasn't a moment in time. This is something that we've got to work through for the rest of his life. Fair. And nobody will have anything more to say about this kid, for better or for worse.
Fair. Big Flow Show, I give it to you, and I say this, I'll add to it, the presumption that Bronny was going to be one and done was not solely created by LeBron James. But I think a lot of that presumption was prompted by the way he talked about it, the timeline, and whether or not he would ever get a chance to play with his son. And so ETP's point about the health scare and how that changed his outlook or willingness to discuss, Bronny from a basketball perspective, I take that. I really do take that. But the idea of one and done, I think, was largely created by, directly or indirectly, right? That timeline, I think it was created by LeBron James. And so it's just interesting to see, man, like how you pivot. And I talked about it from my standpoint, being at that game, and this lady side-eyeing me. And I'm like, look, man, like we talked about the 7-on-7 environment. I'm telling this lady, that's why I called her self-righteous. I was like, just because you consume the game differently than me doesn't make your way of consumption better. And I use self-righteous in a way because I wanted her to understand I was intellectually capable of going back and forth with her and a vocabulary that was expansive enough to not use an expletives. But that fat bitch had me upset, and I just couldn't say it that way, right? And I'm using bitch not from a gender standpoint, but someone rolling their
Brown? What did you say about Brown?
Yeah, no one knows who she is. Her identity is
but sometimes our voices might get confused if it's loud. People don't.
Yeah, man. But that's to me, that is being a bitch. Like you're side eyeing me. You're saying stuff under your breath that I can hear. That's like I didn't like it, right?
So I see what you did there. Expansive, expletive, fat bitch.
Right. Nice. So yeah, range. It's range. You gotta have range.
Expansive, fat, expletive bitch.
Okay. But I bring it here in this particular topic on this show is because the emotions that you have.
How are we going to discuss this in your class? When are you having this class?
Yeah.
So we can go through with the students.
No. The students might not get this episode since I was a little crass.
Nobody heavy set in the class.
But my point is, there's nothing wrong with being heavy set. But not at all.
I agree 100%.
We're running out of time here, fellas.
Right.
The hole is getting too deep and water's starting to come in.
But you gotta be willing to take my description that way. Point being is that the emotions of it with your kids, I get it. You're connected to it, and it's like it's beyond just the conversation. This is your child. So with that, what do you say, man? Is he right to call the dogs off? And we should leave the topic of Bronny James and his pedestrian freshman year numbers and what seems to be a 180 about face with this idea that he can be a one and done. And now even more questions as to whether or not he is ever going to be on an NBA roster in a meaningful way.
Big LeBron James fan over here, you know that. But I think he has kind of has nerve. LeBron is the only one who's been saying that. Look, Bronny has never been a superstar basketball player at any level. He was always pretty good. In high school, he was pretty good. He had some big stats on Sierra Canyon, which was a hand-picked team. His AAU teams, when he was younger, he was always pretty good. LeBron had hand-picked teams, flying guys from all over the country to put the best teams together for him to be the man. But he's never been like this humongous standout. Like he's not super tall. He doesn't have unbelievable jump leaps. He doesn't have a silly burner. He shot some good threes, whatever. But there's nothing about him that just says like he doesn't belong on this court. And when you see NBA guys, Brunson. I used to watch Brunson playing high school against kids in Chicago in the best tournaments. He looked like he didn't belong out there. He was a killer. He was just every part of his game was polished. I watched Bronny James come out here and play our team. He hit like 4 or 5 threes wherever they were wide open, but he wasn't like jumping off the court. Only LeBron James was saying he's a one and done and whatever. He's not a phenom in any stretch of the imagination. So for you to sit there and say now we need to back off and leave him alone, you're the reason why we're talking about it. There's a lot of people's kids out here who play ball. We never talked about Michael Jordan's kids being one and done. Scottie Pippen's his kids have did ball, and they got kids in the NBA.
I lost a bet in the bar last night because I was defending your boy LeBron James. Like, man, his numbers by defending Bronny connected to LeBron James. And I was like, hey, man, me and this dude in the bar talking. Was like, man, they need to back off. I'm like, yeah, but there are some bad numbers, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, but and somehow Michael Jordan came up. And I was like, yeah, but Bronny's numbers, I said not numbers. I said Bronny's better than any of Michael Jordan's kids. And this dude was like, no, such and such was good. And I was like, no, he wasn't, because it wasn't really a topic. And then he bet me $2 that the college numbers look way better than Bronny James. And he won my $2, man. Michael Jordan's son that played at UCF averaged like 12 points a game. He took my $2. But anyway, I'll let you finish. I digress.
I'm just so my point is, like, you brought this all up. So to ETP's point, like, say, listen, I always wanted to play with my son in the NBA, right? It's something I wanted to see happen. It's something I tried to groom to do it. I thought it'd be awesome. But with his health issues, we're happy to get him back where he's at right now. We got to reassess it. We're just going to table this conversation. But we don't say y'all back off like somehow the media started all this shit. We at least say that you're part of it.
Right.
You started it. Nobody ever saw LeBron James' son growing up playing and was like, man, this dude's going to be in the league one and done. He's not. Nobody. No one's ever said that. He's never been a standout like that ever. So right. I just think it's got some hypocrisy there. But when you're the king, I guess King James wrote the define what Bible we read now, right? So when you're the king, you get to change history, right?
That's all you should do. Just show up to the press conference with a Bible, like
the Bible,
King James version. Y'all leave me alone. Back up off me, or I rebuke you. Let's say this and let's end on a positive note, because in his 21st year, he is officially LeBron James played a total of not 1, not 2, not 3. Got to go all the way up to 10. He's played a total of 10 father-son duos. In this episode of Paternity Test, he is proved to be daddy of all of them.
He's
a granddaddy to some, because the man keeps on ticking. Shout out to him, man. Shout out to LeBron James. Despite being second to Michael Jordan on my list, I can no longer hate on the man. Gotta respect the man. Let's go home with this, man. NBA Spotlight. Sorry, not NBA Spotlight. Ball Hog Spotlight. This is my Ball Hog Spotlight moment. And I want us all sharing it, man. Let's celebrate in this episode of Paternity Test. We should all talk about also the maternity test, the mother of all basketball right now. You can get mad and fix your face and get crooked, but the mother of all basketball is Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is 17 points from having the all-time scoring leader, agnostic to gender. Caitlin Clark today, or yesterday, has declared for the 2024 WNBA draft. Quickly, before we get out of here, smart move, presumptive #1 pick, but will be passing up millions in NIL dollars to take a WNBA job. Celebrating her being 17 points away, and Lord willing, that happens in the next game because she normally scores more than 17 points. Lightning round before we get out of here. Ball Hog Spotlight moment. Let's go home with this debate or argument. I say this. Caitlin Clark is crazy to go to the WNBA. She should stay one more year and get all the NIL money that she can get. I'll throw it to you, Big Flow Show. Take us home before I go to ETP. We can debate that. Is she crazy for going to the WNBA?
Um, I I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna say I kind of like what she's doing. So she makes over $900,000 a year in NIL deals right now. She's got some national. I had this up here before, and now I can't find it. She has some national
She's a
national
spokesperson for
promotion,
national sport. Yep,
national
of course
sports
she
things.
is.
Sorry, I can't walk it too young. She's got a lot of national things. I think it's good for women's basketball, and I think that she's going to make enough money that even if she's taking a risk, it's there. I'm hoping that her momentum of this Clark craze carries into the WNBA and starts to kind of bring more. We're starting to get more popular women from college are hitting the WNBA. Her and the Bayou Barbie and some of these other people. I think we're starting to kind of get a little bit of a name for it.
Mhm.
Hopefully, it'll bring some with. Hopefully, these national deals don't just drop her because she went to the WNBA. They keep her. And I think that if they keep her and they keep her face in the limelight, you're going to get a little bit more. People are going to start picking it up. I mean, the way she plays basketball is so unique, so Steph Curry-ish, that I don't think people are going to get tired of seeing someone shoot from the logo. I mean, her doing what she's got to go do. I think that, demographically speaking, she speaks to a lot of people that are out there trying to make it. And I hope that she takes this popularity to the next level and keeps it. She might lose a little bit of money here, but I still think her endorsements are going to be high, and she might as well get going there and start to do something. She can go win a championship early on in her career in the WNBA and turn the team around, and she goes to a major market city. I think it could be something good. So one more year in school, obviously injuries and different things of that nature, she could destroy the record books even more. But she's, if she wins a championship this year for sure, but she's got all the records now. I don't know. It's time to grow up, move out.
ETP, I made the statement. Caitlin Clark is crazy to be thinking of the WNBA with all that NIL money. Not to mention, as the Big Flow Show says, she could separate herself even more from cumulative stats, all-time stats. But I'm saying it just from an NIL opportunity cost that she's going to have to pay to go to the WNBA. I make that statement, and you say what when you hear it?
So I don't think this was a gut instinctive decision or just a pure emotional decision. I would, if any of the people that are around her that brokered any of these deals have anything to say about it, every last one of these sponsors had a very in-depth conversation about what their investment is in Caitlin Clark at University of Iowa versus the Indiana Fever or whoever's going to draft her in the WNBA. So the money, I have no doubt that she's going to lose. I have zero doubt that she's going to take a pay cut in any capacity by going to the WNBA for two reasons. One, all those sponsors are going to go with her. They're going to pay her the same, if not more. Two, she's going to now have a lot more bandwidth and flexibility to increase her participation or her presentation of those sponsorships. Whereas when you're in college, whatever that means at the University of Iowa as a star athlete, there's limitations on what you can and can't do, not contractually, but just time-wise. So as a business person, as a professional in the WNBA, one, you have all these other vehicles around you. Two, you have time that's carved out for you to dedicate to your business. So she's going to have no shortage in terms of her financial return. At the end of the day, she has nothing left to prove in college. She has 17 more points to score to be the undisputed all-time scorer on any basketball court in college basketball. That'll be done. She could definitely stand to win a national championship. We'll see if that happens this year. But if she doesn't, I think it's good. Get out. Stop. Don't overstay your welcome. She's been there long enough for a full degree. Like, it's not like she's leaving early, but she's just, she has another year of eligibility because of COVID, I guess. And ultimately, the WNBA is on the upswing. So she'll get a nice little rookie contract, but the marketing dollars are going to only be there. I mean, she's going to be, as soon as she walks in, she's going to be a candidate for the face of the NBA, the WNBA, but you do see a little bit. I mean, she's going to be a rookie, like Sabrina Ionescu coming out of Oregon to go to the WNBA was the complete talk of the WNBA. She got there and she was just a rookie. She didn't do much. She didn't make a lot of waves, but now she's becoming, again, she just did the 3-point contest with Steph. She's becoming a household name as far as female athletes go, or athletes in general. So it's just
where does Sabrina go?
inevitable.
I'm sorry, where did Sabrina go again? I should know.
Oregon.
Yeah. And you got to think about Caitlin Clark is leaving Iowa City, small time market, and she's killing like that. Wherever she goes in the WNBA, the market's going to be bigger.
Fair.
You know,
you did mention Sabrina Ionescu, and since I went down the slippery slope earlier and will probably be accused of being a misogynist with some of the stuff that I said, let me just go ahead and celebrate the fact that in the paternity test, Steph Curry showed who the daddy is, and he won the 3-point contest against Sabrina Ionescu, although I was rooting for Sabrina. But what a good showing for basketball, right? Agnostic of gender, man. It was a good showing for basketball. Initially, I thought it was going to be a silly contest, but it turned out to be a really good showing for both men, women, but more globally, basketball. I was asked whether or not I thought Caitlin Clark could just be a spot-up shooter in the NBA. And again, since I went already down the slippery slope, I'm going to emphatically say not just no, but hell no, can't happen. But she will be dominant in the WNBA. So shout out to Caitlin Clark in this Ball Hog Spotlight moment. This has been our episode, the paternity test. We started off inspired by the scientific definition of paternity test. But beyond that, the more practical definition of, as dads, we are always tested, especially when it comes to sport and our support of our kids. We talked about several things, and we did it the only way we know how to do it, rough, rugged, and raw. It was the Ball Hog Sports Talk. It was the paternity test. The Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide, is where a few businessmen get together to discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. The paternity test was our love and blood, sweat, and tears pouring into this week's episode. We had the Big Flow Show coming from the Middle Coast. We had ETP coming from the East Coast. I am your boy, B Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Breezy. This has been our show. We hope to catch you next week. Please tune in. Before I leave, I got to ask, please like, please comment, please share, please tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anyone that you know, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast. Enjoy your weekend, people. And with that, we is out. Peace.